Welcome to a spine-tingling adventure as we delve into the enigmatic world of a cursed mirror that's said to reveal your deepest, darkest fears. This mirror has been the subject of countless unsettling reports, with witnesses describing haunting whispers, bizarre apparitions, and even physical pulling towards the unknown depths of the mirror. Is it a cursed object or the home of an evil entity? In this chilling video, we embark on a journey to unravel the secrets of this possessed mirror and uncover the truth about its terrifying power. Are you ready to face your fears? Join us on this hair-raising exploration and find out what lies beyond the reflection.
The moment I stepped into the house my late grandma had left me, the air was musty and thick with the smell of age. The echoing sound of the floorboards beneath my feet made me feel as if I was being watched as I moved. When Jack and I were exploring the property, we came across an old mirror that stood out dramatically from the other tattered furnishings. It was an ornate antique with intricate carvings and a little crooked reflection. There was something ominous and unsettling about the mirror's presence in the room that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I saw that the light streaming in from the window seemed to jitter and flicker in a strange manner inside the door's glass as we drew nearer. We both gave one another a confused look, and when I saw my image in the glass, a shudder ran down my spine. Jack and I shared a puzzled glance. At that same instant, I had the impression that the mirror was looking directly at me while concealing some kind of knowledge or ability. We didn't say a word as we moved closer to each other, lured in by the weird energy emanating from the mirror. As we continued to stare into its surface, our reflections began to warp and mutate, transforming into horrifying visions that were based on our most primal anxieties. Despite the unsettling sensation I had at the very bottom of my stomach, I was unable to take my eyes away from what I was seeing. It was exactly like being unable to wake up while being held captive in a nightmare. It seemed like hours, but Jack and I just stood there gazing into the mirror, watching as our worst fears were played out in front of us. After we were finally able to free ourselves from its grasp, I couldn't help but speculate about the kind of power that was latent within the old glass. Jack and I noticed that we kept going back to the mirror as the days went by. We were unable to resist the draw of the mirror's unusual power because of how exciting it was to see our worries come to life. But as time passed, the mirror's power over us increased. Even when we weren't immediately facing the mirror, we began seeing frightful images. Strange murmurs resonated through the hallways of the ancient mansion, and shadows appeared to linger in the corners of our eyes. I made an effort to tell myself that it was simply my imagination being overactive, but I felt in my heart that something wasn't right. The mirror's influence has become too strong and harmful. We couldn't fight the allure of the dark enchantment of the mirror, despite our rising discomfort. The images became worse and more vivid every time we stared at them. It seemed as if the mirror was gaining strength over time by feeding off our anxiety. Even when I was sleeping, I could still feel the force of the mirror haunting me. I felt unable to withstand the mirror's attraction, as if it had transformed into a doorway to a terrifying and terrible place. I couldn't help but worry about what kind of evil energy we had allowed ourselves to be exposed to as the mirror's grip on us became stronger. I realized we were in serious danger as the shadows got longer and the whispering became stronger. The mirror's power had become almost unbearable, a force that seemed to consume everything in its path. Jack and I tried to ignore it, to go about our daily lives as if nothing was wrong, but the mirror's hold on us grew stronger with each passing day. It was like a dark cloud had descended upon the house, suffocating us with its malevolent energy. Shadows seemed to lurk around every corner, and the air was thick with a palpable sense of dread. Despite our best efforts, we couldn't escape the mirror's influence. We found ourselves drawn back to it time and time again, unable to resist the thrill of seeing our fears made real. But with each passing moment, the mirror's power grew more intense. It was like a living thing, hungry for our fear and willing to do anything to get it. As the days turned into weeks, Jack and I began to feel like we were losing our minds. The visions that once seemed like harmless fun now fill us with a deep sense of terror, leaving us shaken and disoriented. Even when we weren't looking into the mirror, we could feel its presence lurking just beneath the surface of our reality. The air felt charged with a strange electricity, and I could swear that I heard whispers coming from the shadows. Jack and I tried to rationalize what was happening, to convince ourselves that it was all just a trick of the mind. But deep down, we knew that there was something truly malevolent lurking within the mirror's glass. As the mirror's power intensified, I could feel it pulling me in deeper and deeper. It was like a siren's call, impossible to resist no matter how hard I tried. And as the days turned into months, I knew that we were running out of time. The mirror's hold on us had become too strong, and I could feel its power coursing through my veins like a deadly poison. Despite everything, I couldn't help but wonder what kind of dark secrets the mirror was hiding. And as the shadows deepened and the whispers grew louder, I knew that the answer was something far more terrifying than I could ever imagine. The more we delved into the mirror's history, the more we realized that it was a force to be reckoned with. We spent countless hours researching its origins, scouring old books and records in search of any clues that might shed light on its dark power. What we discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The mirror had once belonged to a rumored sorceress, a woman with a dark past and a reputation for dabbling in the occult. According to the records, the mirror had caused harm to its previous owners, driving them to madness and despair. It was said that the mirror had the power to bring one's darkest fears to life, trapping them within its glass for all eternity. As we dug deeper, we began to realize that the mirror's power was not something to be trifled with. It was a force of pure evil, a tool of destruction that had claimed countless lives over the centuries. As we continued our investigation, we discovered that no possessed object should be destroyed unless there is a ritual involved. Breaking the mirror would only release any malevolent spirits, making the situation worse. And yet, despite everything we had learned, we couldn't bring ourselves to get rid of it. The mirror had become a part of our lives, a twisted obsession that consumed us with its dark allure. As the weeks turned into months, the mirror's influence over us grew stronger. We found ourselves drawn to it like moths to a flame, unable to resist its hypnotic pull. And yet, even as we succumbed to the mirror's power, we couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to break its hold on us. Was there a way to defeat the mirror and banish its evil once and for all? The answer, we realized, lay in confronting our deepest fears. We had to face the mirror head-on, confront the demons that lurked within its glass, and emerge victorious. It was a daunting task, one that filled us with a sense of dread and anticipation. But we knew that we had no choice. The mirror's power had to be stopped, no matter the cost. And so we prepared ourselves for the ultimate battle, arming ourselves with all the knowledge and courage we could muster. The mirror may have been a formidable foe, but we were determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. We were at our wits' end, Jack and I. We could not bear to be in the same room as the mirror because of how strong it had become. We knew we needed outside assistance, but we had no idea who to ask. We came upon a flyer for a nearby psychic who specialized in purging cursed items at that point. We were ready to attempt anything at this point, despite the fact that it appeared too good to be true. Madame Zara, the psychic, greeted us cheerfully and welcomed us into her dimly lit parlor. As we described our encounters with the possessed mirror, she listened carefully. Madame Zara knowingly nodded. She said, "I can sense the evil energy coming from the mirror. But do not worry, my darling. In my time, I have purified several cursed items." The mirror was to be brought to her house the next day so she could execute a ceremony to purge it of its evil energy. For the first time in weeks, we felt optimistic as we left her parlor. The next day, we delivered the mirror to Madame Zara's house and saw the ceremony being carried out there. She muttered incantations in a language we didn't understand while lighting candles and burning incense. We sensed an odd energy in the space, like the air was electrically charged. Then, though, things went awry. The mirror started vibrating in its frame and shaking ferociously. The chanting of Madame Zara got louder and more frantic, yet nothing appeared to improve. We suddenly heard a deafening roar and were engulfed in blinding light. The mirror was still there when the light went out, but Madame Zara was nowhere to be seen. We started to look for her with our eyes everywhere, but we did not see her. It was very strange that someone disappears in a fraction of seconds. Could it be that Madame Zara had left the room, leaving us alone? Jack and I looked at each other, intrigued by the absence of Madame Zara. What had happened to her? That's when we realized the truth. Madame Zara was trapped by the mirror. It had ensnared her, just as it had done to its previous owners. We were filled with a sense of dread, knowing that we were next. As we looked into the mirror, we saw Madame Zara's face staring back at us, her eyes filled with terror. We knew that we had to act fast if we hoped to save her, but we had no idea how to break the mirror's hold. We were trapped in our ignorance and desperation, with no way out. The mirror had us in its grasp, and we knew that our time was running out. We could hear Madame Zara's screams echoing through the house, a haunting reminder of the fate that awaited us. Desperate and terrified, we knew that we had no choice but to confront the mirror's dark spirit. It was the only way to save Madame Zara and ourselves from its evil grasp. We took a deep breath, summoning all the courage we had left, and prepared to face our worst fears head-on. The mirror's power had become too strong to bear. Madame Zara's failed attempt at cleansing it had only made matters worse. And now, we were faced with the chilling realization that she was trapped within its malevolent grasp. Jack and I stood frozen, staring at Madame Zara's terror-filled face staring back at us from the mirror's surface. We knew that we had to do something, but we had no idea where to start. The room was filled with a thick, oppressive atmosphere, and we could feel the mirror's power pulsing through our bodies. We knew that we were running out of time. Suddenly, the mirror began to glow with an eerie green light. We heard a voice whispering, taunting us with our deepest fears and insecurities. It was as if the mirror had come alive, feeding off our energy and emotions. We could see our reflections twisting and contorting, distorted by the mirror's evil influence. But we refused to give up. We knew that we had to face our fears head-on if we hoped to break the mirror's hold. Jack stepped forward, his jaw clenching with determination. "We have to do this," he said, his voice shaking with adrenaline. "For Madame Zara and for ourselves." I nodded, feeling a surge of courage within me. "Let's do it," I said, taking a deep breath and stepping up to the mirror. We closed our eyes, focusing on the memories and emotions that the mirror had twisted and distorted. We felt the mirror's power intensifying, but we refused to back down. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the room. It was a voice that chilled us to the bone, a voice that we recognized all too well. "You fools," the mirror spirit hissed. "Do you think you can defeat me so easily?" We all stood frozen, staring at Madame Zara's terror-filled face staring back at us from the mirror's surface. We knew that we had to do something, but we had no idea where to start. The room was filled with a thick, oppressive atmosphere, and we could feel the mirror's power pulsing through our bodies. We knew that we were running out of time. Suddenly, the mirror began to glow with an eerie green light. We heard a voice whispering, taunting us with our deepest fears and insecurities. It was as if the mirror had come alive, feeding off our energy and emotions. As we closed our eyes, we felt the mirror's power intensifying, engulfing us in a suffocating darkness. Our minds were flooded with memories of our darkest moments, twisted and contorted by the mirror's malevolent influence. We could hear the mirror spirit's taunting voice, mocking our fears and weaknesses. But we refused to give up. We stood our ground, determined to break the mirror's hold. And then, in a moment of clarity, I remembered something that Madame Zara had said to us. Remember, she had whispered, the mirror's power comes from the fear and insecurity it feeds on. You must face it head on and show it that you are not afraid. With this knowledge, we opened our eyes and stood tall, facing our distorted reflections in the mirror. We could feel the mirror's power surging through us, but we refused to let it control us. Jack and I stood fearlessly in front of the mirror, staring at its surface, and uttered the following words that sprang from our hearts. By the power of our will, we banish you from this place. You have no power over us, and we cast you out with grace. As we spoke the words, the mirror began to tremble and shake. The green light flickered and faded, and we could see our reflections returning to normal. The oppressive atmosphere in the room lifted, and we could feel the spirit's hold over us loosening. But we knew that we were not out of danger yet. The spirit was still present, lurking in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike. We held hands and backed away from the mirror, our eyes fixed on the dark corners of the room. We need to leave, Jack whispered. Now. We turned to leave the room after nodding in agreement. But just as we got to the entrance, a chilly breeze swept across the space, putting out all the candles and leaving us in the dark. The chamber was filled with the terrifying cry of the mirror ghost. It seems that not being afraid of the mirror had some impact on it. We felt an odd quiet in the air as we carefully approached the chamber that housed the cursed mirror, our hearts thumping with terror and anticipation. There had been a change. It seemed as if reality itself had changed. We entered the room after being suddenly compelled to look around and found that there was a problem. Madame Zara lay on the ground, seeming to be comatose, but her body was quivering from the ferocity of the internal spiritual conflict she was experiencing. As the mirror loomed over her, we hastened to her side, our eyes wide with horror. The mirror seemed to be alive, with a sickening green glow flowing over its surface that pulsed with an evil force. Madame Zara stirred, her eyes fluttering open as she weakly beckoned us closer. The spirit of the mirror, it's too strong, too powerful. She gasped, her voice barely audible over the sound of our pounding hearts. We listened in rapt attention as she warned us to stay away from the mirror, describing its insidious power and the dangers that lay within. With a trembling hand, she covered the cursed object with a dark cloth, shielding it from our view. Then, Madame Zara began to recite an ancient ritual to prevent the evil spirit from causing more harm. We could feel the air around us fill with black magic. We knew that the battle against the evil spirit in the mirror was far from over, but for now, we had a moment of respite. A moment to gather our courage and prepare for the next phase of our battle against the forces of darkness. As we stood in the dimly lit room, the mirror loomed before us, emanating an aura of malevolent power. Madame Zara had told us that there was no way to break the mirror without releasing the evil spirit trapped within, so we were left with only one option. With solemn faces, we carefully placed the mirror in a box and surrounded it with amulets to weaken its power. Madame Zara had provided us with these items, warning us that they were the only things that could attenuate the mirror's dark energy. Once the mirror was securely contained, we knew what we had to do. Madame Zara instructed us to bury it in a place where no one could find it, for fear that the evil spirit trapped within would take hold of another object or, worse, another person. We set out in the dead of night, the weight of the box heavy in our hands. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, and we could feel the mirror's power emanating from the box. Finally, we reached a secluded spot deep in the woods, far from any prying eyes. We dug a deep hole in the ground and carefully placed the box inside. As we covered it with dirt, we felt a sense of relief and dread wash over us. The mirror was gone, but its power would never truly disappear. We knew that we had done the right thing, but we also knew that we would always have to be vigilant, for the evil spirit trapped within the mirror would always be searching for a way to escape and wreak havoc on the world once again. As we buried the mirror deep in the earth, a chill ran down my spine. It was as if we had just sealed away a dark and malevolent force, but the thought of what we had unleashed still lingered in my mind. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but the feeling of unease never left us. Every time we looked into a mirror or any reflective surface, we could hear a faint whisper, like a voice from beyond the grave. It was a voice that taunted us with our deepest fears and insecurities, reminding us of the power that had once possessed the mirror. As time passed, the whispers grew louder and more persistent, and we could feel the presence of the mirror's evil spirit all around us. It was as if we had invited it into our lives, and now we were trapped in its grasp. Desperate to find a solution, we asked Madame Zara for help once again, but she only shook her head sadly. "You have sealed the mirror, but its power lingers," she told us. "You must overcome your fears every time you feel the whisper of the evil voice or when you see yourself in front of a mirror. It is the only way to overcome it, because otherwise the spirit of the mirror will use your fears to have influence over you again." We left Madame Zara's house with heavy hearts, knowing that our battle with the mirror was far from over. Every time we caught a glimpse of ourselves in a mirror or reflective surface, we could hear the faint whisper of the mirror's malevolent voice, taunting us with our deepest fears and insecurities. But we refused to let the mirror's power control us again. We made a pact to face our fears head-on, to overcome the voices in our heads and the shadows in our minds. It was a difficult journey, filled with moments of doubt and terror, but we persisted. Slowly but surely, we began to notice a change in ourselves. We were no longer as easily swayed by our fears, no longer paralyzed by the mirror's influence. We had taken back control of our minds and our lives. But the memory of the possessed mirror would always haunt us, a reminder of the darkness that lurked in the corners of our world. And every time we saw our reflections, we couldn't help but wonder if the mirror's spirit was still out there, waiting to take hold once more.
Well, there you have it, the legend of the possessed mirror that reveals your deepest, darkest fears. Know of your beliefs in the supernatural. You have to admit that this item gives you the creeps. Be prepared to be unsatisfied with what you see in this mirror if you dare to seek it out. Please subscribe to our channel for more stories of the weird and mysterious.